He's a senior Russia analyst at the International Crisis Group who focuses on both the country's domestic affairs as well as Moscow's role in conflicts around the world. Oleg, thank you so much for your time. You'll have seen some analyses over the past few weeks which have shown that certainly since the start of the year, it's been especially costly in terms of Russian soldiers losing their lives in the east. How much is the Russian public aware of what's being reported outside, or is it just that they choose not to believe it?
I think it depends who you are. It depends which sources of information do you have. So if you are an urban citizen, yes, yet if you live in a big city, and if you have access to VPN, if you have access to Telegram channels, you can have a picture what is happening in Ukraine. But if you live outside big cities, if you don't care about alternative sources of information, of course you don't have understanding of what is happening there. So it depends on your status, on your social status. Yes, it depends on your interests, curiosity, but it's very different. And I think that in the Russian regions, people have a very different opinion, very different understanding of this war. And they don't have a lot of information about casualties, of course, because the television gives them an alternative, a totally different picture.
It must be madness to see reporting from abroad saying that 800 of your countrymen are dying every day. That was a few weeks ago, of course. Oleg, what about the calculations the Kremlin will be making when it considers what sort of heavy weaponry is soon going to be arriving from the West? Are they military calculations in terms of how do we defeat that weaponry, or are they as much political?
It's a good question. There is a theory that Russia may try to accelerate its offensive because of these deliveries. Yes, I mean that we know that both sides are not satisfied with the current status quo, and both sides are planning some kind of offensive operations. Yes, and if Russia knows in advance that Kyiv would be stronger, that Kyiv would get more and more Western weapons, including offensive weapons such as tanks, it may accelerate its planning. So it may start its offensive earlier, but it would make the price of mistakes even more. Yes, and so it's not if Russians are not prepared, and if they understand that Kyiv would be stronger, and if they start an offensive, it's a huge risk for Russian military. But for now, yes, we see all of this. We see that this war of attrition is continuing. Yes, there are a lot of rumors about Russia's preparations. Yes, there are a lot of rumors where Russian reserves are. Yes, but we don't see any evidence that Russia are planning a big offensive. And even some experts, some commentators in Russia, and not only in Russia, they say that it's a big question if Russia can start a big offensive right now. Maybe what we see in the future is such long battles of attrition in some sectors or in some parts of the front line. Yes, and so I mean that this war could evolve into some kind of the First World War. Yes, and in Russia this analogy is very popular, that this war reminds more and more the First World War, not the Second World War. I mean the war of attrition, the trench war. Yes, when both sides don't have huge successes. Yes, and then both sides have to invest more and more resources and don't have big achievements.
Do you think China is going to come to Russia's rescue? There are a few different factors here. You could see it as Beijing wanting to weaken both the United States and possibly even Russia. But you could look at it another way and see this as a critical moment, possibly for a time that the relationship between Moscow and Beijing grows to such an extent that in 10 years' time, it will be, if they continue working together, a proper foil to US hegemony.
It's a good question. What we know about China is that for China to deliver any weapons to Russia would be a huge shift in policy. Yes, because China wanted to stay neutral. China didn't want to be a party to the conflict. Yes, and of course, if China supplies Russia with weapons, it would be a party to the conflict. Yes, it would be a completely different situation, and I agree that we will have a lot of risks here. But of course, but from the other side, yes, I agree that China is not interested of Russia's collapse. Yes, and if China understands that Russia is collapsing, it would try to prevent this collapse. But for now, we don't see any such evidence. Yeah, Russia is not collapsing. We can't say that Russia is losing the war. Yes, we can say that Russia is winning, but we can't say that it's losing. Yes, and that's a problem. And I don't think that China has any interests for now to be party of the conflict. Yes, but of course, China helps Russia, and it helps Russia with dual-use technologies. Yes, it helps Russia to circumvent sanctions in some aspects. Yes, it delivers. It helps Russia with technological experts. It helps Russia with drones and other things. But we don't have evidence that that China has helped Russia with ammunition. But we also know one thing that the other thing that North Korea delivered. We had information. Yes, it was on public that North Korea supplied Russia with ammunition. And if it happened, it means that, of course, China knew about this. Yes, and China didn't prevent this. Yes, because China has special relations with North Korea. But as I said, it would, if China makes such a decision, I mean, to help Russia with ammunition, it would be a huge shift in China's policy, and it would be a completely different situation.
Oleg Ignatov, really appreciate the analysis. Oleg, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.